Hey guys, so I just watched the Mario Brothers movie, Super Mario Brothers movie, which is maybe a bit iffily named given to what's actually in it. By the way, we're just gonna have the slideshow run because I'm not gonna try to use movie visuals and get this video blocked, and I'm not doing the video essay project of editing the visuals to make this thing not get blocked. That would take dozens of hours. Now this is just some off the cuff stuff because I guess me having takes sometimes is a thing what y'all enjoy and stuff. So I'm gonna be a contrarian and annoying and say that the movie that everybody likes is bad. I just come out and say it like that. It sounds very goofy. Okay, so I'm being dramatic, but I don't want to ever watch this movie again is where I'm landing. Like it was exceptionally fine. It was okay, and it's what stands out to me is just it was so incredibly vapid, but like and that's almost mean to say because it's such a high effort animation and the animators put all these nice little like details throughout every single piece of the movie. There's so many tiny blink and you miss it moments, like cat Mario making bread on DK's back, that little like hand, that little paw gesture thing they do where they just kind of flex their paws alternatingly, and it's like it's not the focus of the camera, it's not the point of the scene, but like it's just there, and there's so many little moments like that. It's like it's a well animated movie, but animation quality doesn't necessarily make a good movie in itself. And what I struggle with this is that this movie just kind of doesn't really have any kind of larger point. And I'm not saying that it has to be like an allegory for apartheid or whatever the fuck, like heavy, crazy ideas, but like even in a kid's movie, you generally have themes and some kind of like emotions that hit and like an overall arc that's more interesting than we got here. Like the Pokemon movie made me feel things, and this movie did not really make me feel things, is what I'm saying, essentially. I'm just gonna dive into spoilers because trying to talk around stuff is already getting tedious, but ultimately that's the gist of it. It's like, it's a competently made, not that interesting movie that you'll probably forget about relatively quickly, and it'll just be the event of, oh, they made a Mario movie, that's crazy, right? And it was like, it like resembled Mario, unlike whatever was happening in the other Mario movie, which has its own charms, but was decidedly strange by comparison. And if that's literally all you want on like this Ready Player One sort of level of like, it's iconography I enjoy, then I guess that you'll probably get what you wanted. It's a movie that has iconography that you're familiar with, and it mostly recreates it a lot of the time. Chris Pratt does not single-handedly ruin the movie as much as it was a joke on the internet that he would do so, because everyone's tired of Chris Pratt, and some of his real life stuff isn't very great as a sign. And it's just, why would you want to cast Chris Pratt as of all people as Mario? It just felt like a strange thing, but he didn't like single-handedly ruin it or was even distractingly bad. He doesn't really sound like Mario to me, but well, most of the characters don't really sound like the characters that I'm familiar with, so that's just kind of a pointless hill to die on for him specifically at that point. All right, I'm just going to start talking about spoilers in general, I guess. One of the first things that was immediately driving me crazy is that, and I don't remember what song it is because I don't have everything memorized all the time, but the movie opens on a attack on the Ice Kingdom with the penguins by Bowser, and it's like this cool visual of like, oh, here's this setup of like, this is the villain, and here's all those soldiers, and it's being like this, it's extremely like overhyped in this beautiful, extravagant animation, somewhat akin to like the opening of the Puss in Boots movie. Speaking of movies that have a point and are about something and have emotional resonance, and I want to watch again immediately, go watch Puss in Boots, whatever the subtitle was called, A Wish or something. I want to be honest. Until the morning I was going to see Puss in Boots 2, I forgot there was a first Puss in Boots, so I just thought of it as the Puss in Boots movie for like weeks until I finally saw it, and only right before I was about to see it realized it was a sequel, and then watched the first movie right beforehand on a whim that I had forgotten existed. So I just think of the new movie as Puss in Boots, even though it is a sequel. But anyway, that was a significantly better movie. But this opening has like a similar like, is, I don't think in media res is really the right thing to call it, but it's just like, here's a in-universe scene that doesn't have much setup and just kind of does an action sequence, and in doing so kind of establishes some of the visuals and characters that you're going to be dealing with. In this case, it's Bowser attacking the Ice Kingdom, and immediately I'm pissed because they do a needle drop. They play a familiar rock music song over this Mario scene, and it just doesn't work when everything else in the scene largely is working. And like the comedy's okay, like the penguins unleash this like volley of ineffective attacks, and then they're like, this is just a taste of our might, do you yield? And it's like the first thing that made me laugh in this movie. But the needle drop is so distracting and dumb. Then you cut to Brooklyn in the real world, or the equivalent thereof in the Mario setting, and they in that scene they use "No Sleep Till Brooklyn" by the Beastie Boys, and I'm like, okay, fuck, we've been watching this movie for minutes and we already have 2 licensed tracks. Like, I hated it when this happened in the first Suicide Squad movie. I hated it when this happened in the Percy Jackson movie, where they're like, sounds like you're going to have to go on the highway to hell. And then it starts playing Highway to Hell by AC/DC. Funnily enough, this movie also has an AC/DC needle drop, and it's also like a frustratingly obvious choice. Like, I have to wonder sometimes, because like needle drops feel like they only have it feels like all movies are collectively sharing 100 songs, and they're not allowed to deviate from that list of songs. So like we have like No Sleep Till Brooklyn, we have like a couple of AC/DC songs, we have like Take On Me by Aha, and like a few other songs that like you just hear all the time. Like, I half expected to hear Fortunate Son in this movie because of how obvious the song choices were. I have to wonder, when they do this, like, do they see a scene set in Brooklyn and they word search their 100 song list for the song that has the word Brooklyn in its title, and they're like, oh yeah, here we go, Beastie Boys, No Sleep Till, and then it plays a song that says Brooklyn in it, and therefore it's related to the scene somehow, because, you know, it takes place in Brooklyn. Like, that's the level of depth we're dealing with here. It drives me crazy. I hate it. But I will say, if this movie was better about needle drops, they could have set up contrast, because there is a song in the very, very end of the movie that takes place in the real world that plays off of an alarm clock, and then there's this No Sleep Till Brooklyn song. If they wanted to specifically satisfy me, someone that doesn't matter, they could play just those 2 songs and none of the rest of it, and the rest of the music is all orchestrations of Mario classics and so on, and that would actually work. That would be a way of doing a needle drop that I can accept on some level. It'd be like the akin to like how the Monster Hunter movie that also is an isekai, because this movie's an isekai Mario movie. I guess Mario kind of always was an isekai, or implied to be, and that he was implied to be a plumber, but I don't... When was the lore established that he's a real-life plumber and the Mushroom Kingdom is a separate world from Mario's plumber world? Because I'm not entirely sure if that's even canon in Mario, or if it's just a thing that old adaptations invent, like the About Mario movies. I actually have no idea. But if they wanted to set up contrast here, they could have had No Sleep Till Brooklyn and that, I think it was the Electric Light Orchestra song, play, and then drop Thunderstruck, drop Take On Me, and any of the other songs I'm forgetting right now. Don't use any of those, because those are all dumb. But that would set up a contrast where you have familiar music in the familiar world, and then you have Mario music in the Mario world, which I get how it's phrased confusingly by me, because Mario is from the world that is not the Super Mario world, because the games are named after him, but he's not from that world, at least in this movie. But that would at least work on some level. Instead, they made the very, very strange choice of playing a bunch of 80s music in this movie that is not for people from the 80s. It's like one of the core demographics here is to make movies for children. Like, it's meant to be for little kids, and like the little kids in the theater were losing their entire shits. They're freaking out. They're having a great time. So like there's a demographic here, and I know that there's also adults that are here because Mario's been around forever. But like, I almost wonder who these 80s songs are for? Like, is it just insecurity that they've been included in the movie? Like, oh, we're panicked because we want the parents to take their kids to watch this movie 5 times because that's the profit. That's why movies for kids are so profitable on some level, is because they don't care about repetition, and will drag their parents to the theater over and over again, and the parents will succumb if the movie is tolerable enough. So are they pandering to the parents with 80s songs that the kids don't know? Because that seems almost misguided. Like, one, because it's the same tedious songs we've heard in 100 shows and movies over and over again, because they are those obvious picks. But also because, like, the parents, Mario's one of the most popular properties in the world. The parents probably know the music from Mario. So if anything, giving us more time to play more of the music from Mario would be a better fit than rushing it constantly. Like, a lot of there's a ton of recognizable tracks, but a lot of them come and go in like 10 seconds because they have to fight for airtime with each other in an only 90-minute movie, and a lot of the montage scenes in the movie are taken over by a licensed song. One of the ones that really bothered me, because here's where you get to me and you're like, oh, here comes one of my favorite songs that's related to here, because they've incorporated Donkey Kong into this, and so you get Jungle Japes, which is a track that I absolutely I love Jungle Japes. It's like one of my favorite Nintendo songs outside of like the Zelda soundtracks, basically. And they do the fucking thing that I always make fun of about like Ghostbuster reboot stuff, where it's like, I think this was a real trailer, right? I'm not imagining this, where they did like somber piano Ghostbusters theme for the kids reboot one, where it's like, famously the Ghostbusters song is really energetic and silly and goofy, and then has dumb lyrics, and it's like, but then the fucking like decades later reboot that has child actors is like dun 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 dun, with like a big pause for applause and gasping, and it's like it's supposed to be so intense and mysterious, and I'm like, that's not the tone of this song at all. This doesn't work. I hate this. And in a similar note, they come up to the gate of the jungle kingdom where DK is, and at the unveiling of the gate, you hear like da 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 da, like really slow and somber, like, oh my goodness, it's so mysterious. It's like, remember Jungle Japes? Wow, we're building to something here. We're gonna show you the gorillas from The Thing. And then the gate opens and there's a blonde gorilla, and he gets them into a Mario Kart. This is gonna get, I have to call everything Mario something, because that's what everything's called, but like they're gonna do a Mario Kart thing. But then as they fucking cruise around this Mario Kart track in the Mario Kart, they don't play Jungle Japes. They just hinted Jungle Japes for a second, but instead they play Take On Me by Aha. Why would you do that to me? I like that song, but I hear it all the time in every piece of media. It's a completely detached from anything thing. Jungle Japes is specific to this setting, and you didn't play it. Instead, you play Take On Me? Why? What does that say about the narrative? What am I supposed to feel when you play Take On Me during Mario Kart? What is that even? It's not, I don't even understand the correlation there. It doesn't like match the emotion of the scene. I don't think Take On Me, if I looked at it closer, has any particular like thematic resonance with what's happening in the scene. I don't understand. It's like somebody just played random music they like for no reason. And I don't understand why they would do that. But I am a bit ahead of myself. So back in Brooklyn, they have this dynamic where Luigi and Mario have their should be Luigi and Mario. They got their plumbing company, and they're not taken seriously, and this bigger dude mocks them. And this is one of the few things that kind of sets up kind of themes in the movie, but they do it really, really haphazardly. Is that Luigi is innocent and pure, and just wants the best, and he continues to be just the best character. I love him, and he's voiced by Charlie Day, and they're being mocked for their commercial, which was funny, that advertises their Super Mario company, which itself has little nods towards elements of the Mario games. Like they're at one point they're wearing capes, and the iconography on their van kind of looks like Mario jumping up with his fist in the air. Which itself looks like like the Mario jump. And they got the capes that look like that one power up, which never comes up in this particular movie, from like Mario 3 or whatever. There's fun to be had there. And this big guy's making fun of them for their dumb commercial. He's like, have you even gotten a call? And he's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, our mom called and she thought it was really good. And then he mic drops his phone, shattering the screen and realizing how much of a mess that was. And it's like this one little scene with Luigi is precious. And then he's kind of voiped out of the movie relatively quickly. He doesn't really come up much throughout the rest of this. But in this scene, Luigi's about to get bullied by the big dude, and Mario steps in to defend him. And it's a hopeless thing because this guy is so much bigger than Mario is, but it's like that's their dynamic as Mario defends Luigi, and that's kind of sweet. And it's a thing that they can't really set up very well, but they try to have a through line here a little bit. Like early on, Mario says the line that as long as we're together, nothing will go wrong. But they do get immediately separated, and then Luigi is captured for the entire movie. Therefore, Luigi, because he's captured by Bowser, has no dynamic with Mario throughout this entire movie. We have no more scenes with them having a relationship outside of this brief opening. And so we're meant to just project over them, which is a bit of an issue because this is an adaptation of a video game series that itself mostly requires us to just project personalities on these characters because of how little actual storytelling there is in any of these games. So it kind of just leaves us in this really awkward place where we once again kind of have characters that don't have much development in the actual movie that is about storytelling, to the point where while Luigi is imprisoned, they have to use a flashback, which itself is another reference because every scene in this movie is references, which does start to wear after a point. They show baby Luigi and baby Mario, very much animated in the style of the little baby versions of them from some of the games. And little baby Mario stands up for little baby Luigi when he's getting picked on in the sandbox or whatever. And it's like just a repeat of the scene from the beginning of the movie, but they're just trying to like do a setup and payoff thing where they are reinforcing this element of Mario standing up to bigger dudes on behalf of Luigi or on behalf of what's right, essentially, which is what will ultimately happen both with DK and Bowser. But I can't think of any particular emotional payoff for the idea of Mario standing up. It's primarily that at the end, he has this moment where he's bruised and hiding, and his friends are fighting Bowser 4-on-1, somewhere outside, and then Mario then chooses to stand up, which is like, I don't know. It's like it's strange. I want to say that this is like the hero's journey, right? Because Mario is from a different world. He gets swept into this world, and then he has this call to action and call to adventure to the point where like literally Toad is like, we're going, it's the adventure, like the call to adventure from Campbell's hero's journey. Literally, this is a line from the dialogue of the movie. It's not, but like he's almost there to point out that element of it. And like, I think he might actually go through a lot of the archetypical like stages of that kind of route, all the way to the point where he then comes home a changed man to impress all of his family very directly, because during the Bowser fight, all of his family is also there and observing the fact that, oh wow, look at Mario go, we never would have believed this. But I feel like they don't get what an arc is, because Mario didn't change as a person. He didn't actually change and grow and adapt all that much in like a character sort of way, because he kind of didn't have any character flaws to overcome. Like, the problem with this flashback of baby Mario standing up for baby Luigi and succeeding at doing so and sincerely being brave and looking out for him is that it means he's not doing anything different at the end of the movie. When he chooses to stand up and fight and risk himself for Luigi and everybody at the end of the movie. He's just doing what he did all along, including in the flashback in the distant past before the movie. Like this is so consistently his character trait that it was literally like that in flashbacks. So despite the movie being structured like the hero's journey up to and including like the whole call to adventure and like going through the other world and then coming back and coming back home, changing all that, he doesn't actually change at all, because this was just his entire personality the whole time. His only development is he learned how to use power-ups, which isn't really a character beat. Like, I don't think him eating mushrooms even though he doesn't like mushrooms, which is a reoccurring joke. Like, what a wacky joke that Mario doesn't like mushrooms, even though it's the Mushroom Kingdom and his famous power-up is a mushroom. Him being willing to eat a mushroom to use a power-up isn't really a character arc. So him behaving the same at the beginning and end of the movie, but just now he's better at using a Tanuki suit, isn't really much of a trait. And in fact, he doesn't even get to practice the individual powers, because every single power-up he ever uses for the sake of variety and maximum iconography usage and wow, nostalgia is literally a different power-up every single time. Like, he gets big once, he gets a Tanuki once, he is invincible once, he is a cat once. Like, it's very consistent about not repeating them as much as possible because of the fact that they don't want to, like, essentially waste time. Like, they were so bursting at the seams to get every reference in that they put the cape in the commercial, because that's not one of the power-ups he uses in the movie. And this movie is like dripping with references like that. Like, there's a part where the King Bob-omb sits down on an occupied seat, and which it squishes a Koopa, which makes the Koopa bounce back and forth along that pew infinitely in shell form, because that's what shells do in Mario games. There's a part where he jumps on a flower and he flies in the air and he's spinning with his arms out, because that's how Mario flies in the air when he bounces off certain things. He does that weird spin in some of the 3D games. There's like infinite versions of those if you want them. But like, it's just, the movie just felt so flat because nothing really happens. Let's see. There's a strange dog fight at the beginning of the movie. The idea is to show the idea that Mario and Luigi's plumber business isn't off to a great start, and it involves them doing a perfectly good job at plumbing, but then because one of them stepped on like a dog treat and the dog got mad at them, the dog personally closed the door and trapped them in the bathroom and was planning, like, it was like a weird, oddly like like villainous and like brutal, like, I'm about to beat the shit out of both of you and keep it and do it in like this discreet, abusive, secretive way. I'm like, I don't love this scene. I didn't love the tone of the weirdly serious, brutal dog, and the fact that, like, in that scene, like, their plumber business isn't even struggling because they're bad at their jobs or making mistakes at plumbing, but just unrelated shenanigans with a dog that happens for no reason. And then they get sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom because in a way that's like weirdly reminiscent of Warriors of Virtue, a movie that I watched too much growing up, with the Captain Planet elemental kangaroos, live action furry kangaroo suits where every character looks like Ron Perlman somehow at the same time. In that movie, a kid goes into the sewers on a dare, and then the pipe collapses and he falls into a whirlpool and ends up in another world, isekai style. In this one, they jump into a whirlpool, they climb across a pipe and it collapses, and they end up in a weird pipe network that makes them get sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom. It just kind of exists. As much as there is kind of a attempt to almost set it up, the portal to the Mushroom Kingdom definitely just exists already somehow. And is never addressed again, which I don't care for explanations about that stuff anyway, so it's fine. Something that really bothered me going through the setup of this movie in particular, like pretty much the entire, I basically hated the entire movie from the moment Mario goes to the Mushroom Kingdom all the way up until they arrive at the apes, because this entire chunk of the film, not counting cutaways to Bowser, is so rushed and hyper functional, and that it's strange to sit through. Like Mario just plops out in front of Toad, surrounded by mushrooms. His goal is to find Luigi because he was with Luigi in the mushroom in the warp pipe transit, but they got separated. And that one weird separation, sending Luigi to Bowser, enables the entire plot, even though him going to Bowser's Kingdom is not caused by any kind of character beat or personality flaw. Like, once again, total lack of, like, Luigi is a coward, I guess, but there's like no real like choices being made, so no one's making mistakes to learn from or in any way like being much of an agent in a lot of this stuff. Like, they literally just are in the warp pipe, and then for no reason, right after they're talking about, like, well, as long as we're together, Luigi gets thrown into the evil place and Mario gets thrown into the good place, and that sets the entire plot up, just kind of like, because the scriptwriter said they have to end up in these two places, so this pipe will just do that to them for some reason. Mario just plops out in front of Toad, and Toad just is instantly guiding Mario to the princess, but with no setup or motivation or characterization or even like on some level, all they really had to do was like, oh my god, another human! I didn't know any more of you existed. Are you Peach's family? Or what's going on? Like, any level of like acknowledgement that your princess is a human and no other humans exist in this entire world. She arrived as a kid. Like, he's not like overjoyed at the idea of like, oh my god, another human after all these years. Like, we gotta tell the princess. Or like, just like, there's no acknowledgement of that plot, that like element of Peach's character until you arrive at Peach. So Toad's just walking towards the princess, like towards the castle already on autopilot, and Mario's just kind of following him. But Toad didn't really say like, follow me, or we gotta go here for some reason on a mission, or any like, there's no real like urgency to it or motivation to it that's stated. And only like over the course of the walk, eventually does he like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take you to the princess, I guess. And like, why? Why are we going to the princess? Do you just think the princess wants to see us? And like, they get there and nobody wants him to see the princess. Every single Toad was there to stop them from seeing the princess. Every guard doesn't want anyone to come in. Everyone's chasing Mario when he goes inside. And it's like, where was the stated motivation for coming to the princess? Like, I know it's because the plot has to happen. They got to get to the princess so that he can meet the princess, then go on this mission to save Luigi, because that's the plot of the movie. But like, the carelessness of the entire like opening, like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long this was, after the Brooklyn scenes, just felt so lazy. Like, it literally was just like, okay, these pieces need to get here, so they just have scenes where the pieces get there and don't think about like how the characters would behave, or why people would go where they go, or why they would think the way they think, or just any kind of anything. It's just, it's hard to explain an absence of something, but like, movies tend to just be better than this. So when I see stuff like this, I can't help but think like, yeah, no, this is why there's a disparity. Like, people are talking about how the critics are out of line with what the audience thinks. And sure, that happens. Like, sometimes the audience and the critics don't agree. But I'm saying, like, I think the critics are pretty correct when I see stuff like this, which is how, like, it's not a matter of, like, there had to be, like, intense emotional depth to these opening scenes and, like, and all this setup here. But, like the Puss in Boots movie does so much better with like characterization and motivation and like getting into why characters are where they are and where they're going, and it manages to have like an emotional through line for like 3 different competing parties at once, because you have Puss in Boots himself, and you have his ex-fiancée, and then you have the bears and Goldilocks. And then you just have the villain guy that's just a dickhead villain. And even on some level, you even have the characterization of the villain himself, Lobos. Like, the other villain. The kind of villain. Like, all of these characters have so much going on, and Lobos' introduction is terrifying and so much better. Like, it's everything about it is so much better that I'm just... multiple times during the time I watched this movie, I just wanted to go back and watch Puss in Boots again because it actually made me feel things and had characters I cared about. Whereas this movie borrows characters that you're assumed to care about and then does basically nothing with them. Like, it's amazing how much Toad is just there to walk a character from point A to point B a couple times and be there, kind of. Like, there's a token effort to make him do like wacky sidekick things, like basically just say wacky sidekick things, like he's Olaf the Snowman a couple of times, but he pretty much disappears from the script despite being in the movie the entire time after this intro scene because of how little there is for him to do and how little he is an entity as a character. And there was this okay. There is a fun little like Easter egg sequence where it's like the equivalent of like Zootopia, where at the beginning they show the Zootopia city and you're like, oh, look at all these little concessions that are made to the fact that this world exists in the way it does. Like, here's this like really goofy, weird, specific things, like how in Zootopia there was like a weird funnel that would carry like smoothies up to giraffe height when they order drinks, and like little goofy devices like that are just fun montage stuff. There is a sequence where they go through the Mushroom Kingdom and there's just like a marketplace full of like familiar Mushroom Kingdom items and little logistical ideas like, oh, their ATMs are question mark blocks. Sure, it's inconvenient, huh? They have to punch a block to get their money out. Waka waka. And like, that stuff's cute. It's inoffensive. It's over in a few seconds. But then you get to Peach, and I hate her. I don't like Mario. I don't like Peach. She's very boring as a character. I like the idea, like it's fun that if you're gonna introduce a movie where Mario is the fish out of water, then it makes sense that like Peach would be like the human that's grown up here. So she's actually really well adapted to this whole weird like platformer universe with question blocks and obstacles and whatnot. So she has an obstacle course that she can instantly do, and I don't see it as any kind of like patronizing like feminism thing or whatever. It's like, yeah, like Peach has been repeatedly established as being capable in these different games, despite also being kidnapped in most of them. There's just between Smash Brothers and I think elements of Paper Mario and some of her standalone games and Mario Brothers 2 and so on, there's just like enough little moments of like, oh yeah, Peach should be able to be capable in this setting. And if Mario and Luigi are not native to here and have never been here before, then it makes sense that she would be sort of like a mentor figure for those purposes. And she just is the most powerful of them for that purpose. But there's almost like a strangely like sexist scene that happens that I think is on purpose, but it's not quite. It doesn't quite like nod at the camera in a like. There's not quite the self-aware moment to acknowledge that like makes it me completely convinced that the writers knew that they were doing it. But I think it was on purpose. When they get to the Jungle Kingdom, because they want to recruit the gorilla army to save the Mushroom Kingdom, which does not really amount to anything, but they tried. Peach makes this big attempt to convince them to do it, and Mario's just sitting there gormlessly, having no idea what's going on. And after completely dismissing and talking down to Mario, to Peach for the idea of trying to recruit their army to fight Bowser, fucking Mario steps in for 1 second. It's like, we're not leaving without that army. That's not even, I don't know what that voice was. Instantly, Mario is taken way more seriously and is challenged to a duel, and then he has to go fight DK. But like, the fact that the movie just like has Cranky Kong just completely ignore Peach and everything she's saying, and then the second that the man in the scene says one thing, he's taken way more seriously than she ever was, and then is challenged to a death duel despite being way less capable and also not being royalty or anyone that anyone knows, is just, oh. That just gave me pause. I was thinking about that for like the next few minutes of the movie where I'm like, was that on purpose? I don't know. I could not entirely tell if this was a point of commentary or even just another rushed thing, because they obviously wanted to have a Mario versus DK fight. And that's the point of this entire part of the movie, is just to do this because it would be a fun thing to do, basically. So they just do that. They just have Mario and DK fight. So it's like, Mario stepped in and, okay, fine. You want to prove yourself? Here's a challenge to the death. Go fight the DK, and you get our army if you win. And if you don't win, we didn't actually bother having stakes in the opposite direction. I guess you just leave. Obviously, he wins. But the fact that the Mario who has less authority and is known by nobody, but he spunkily says one line, is like taken more seriously than Peach, the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, of like, oh, gender, okay. What a fucking scene to include. And it would be funny if it was commentary, and it could be, but I'm not 100% sold that it was. I can't tell if it was intentional commentary or if it was literally just more lazy piece moving because they just wanted this Mario versus DK scene to happen. So they were just kind of functionally speeding through the scene, because almost every plot related scene feels like it's in a hurry. Like it just goes as fast as possible as they can, and just kind of gets things. And a lot of stuff is just set up to just make visuals and sequences happen that they wanted to have happen, essentially. And that's kind of what a lot of these scenes amount to. It's a lot of filler. It's a lot of boring. This all speaks to why I found all of the Peach and Mario scenes tedious, was because they are just playing out an incredibly obvious plot. And it's not that it's bad for me to know where a movie is going, but the fact that me knowing where this movie is going is also all the movie is doing is rough. Like, I did not really watch trailers for this movie. I did not look up anything about it, but it's a short movie and it just has a very specific arc to it. So you really are just watching the exact thing that you know is going to happen in the most efficient and clean way possible, to then get to the next sequence, which is also plays up the way that you think it's going to do, but fits in some jokes here and there, some animation gags, and the animation's good, so the sequences can be fun on that level. But it is like just a series of set pieces where a cool thing happens, and then the connective tissue is as rushed as possible, almost like it kind of feels like they just were like, hey, we got the Mario IP, can't wait to get this movie out as fast as possible to make a profit off of it and just get it out of the way, essentially. And that might have been what happened. It might have been extremely rushed. All that rambling aside, while the core of the movie isn't very good, the Jack Black scenes, the Bowser scenes, were pretty consistently fun. I enjoyed him having this big conquest to get the Invincibility Star, and then revealing with his super weapon to all of his troops in a grand, dramatic, fiery throne meeting that his plan all along is to marry Peach, which is this acknowledgement of... It's an acknowledgement of a very strange through line in the Mario games, and at one point you even get to see Bowser in his wedding suit from Mario Odyssey, and what really works there, despite the fact that it's it threatens to be an orange spandex scene. What would you prefer, orange spandex from, which is famously used Cyclops' voice in the X-Men movie, where we're mocking the source material because we're insecure about it. It's no, instead of being a lazy meta joke about a weird quirk of Bowser, instead they play it completely sincerely. Bowser's entire motivation, he has a background motivation, which is that he wants to rule the world, sure, but his core established motivation throughout this movie in each scene is that he wants to marry Peach. He clearly has a crush on her. He specifically talks about her heart-shaped bangs and stuff like that. And it's not good. This is weird incel shit. It's not a good thing. So it's not it's sympathetic or anything like that, but it's you understand what his goal is, and he's sincere about it, and so it makes the scenes more entertaining because he makes this big confession that's kind of lacking self-awareness to his entire army, and they are all completely aghast at this baffling motivation, but he means it, so he just powers through, and the movie just continues along that path. There's the little wizard is like his personal like practice speech person, where he tries his pickup lines and stuff and role plays the idea of proposing to Peach, and it's like that's all solid stuff. We get Jack Black singing, which is inevitable. Like, it'd be a waste not to. And he's singing in character as Bowser, and he has bylighting on, which is very noticeable. Like, oh, okay, here we go. This, do they know what this visual represents when they used it? I'm not entirely sure, but it's Bowser's actual sincerity makes his scenes work. And it reminds me how much I wish there was more Luigi in this movie, because he's already a pretty earnest and sincere character, and he's just kind of sidelined because he's captured at the beginning instead of Peach in this one. And that makes him boring because he's barely in the movie. But the Bowser scenes all work, and they're good fun. There's a goofy bit of filmmaking where when Luigi first gets separated but is not kidnapped yet, he immediately has like a Luigi's Mansion sequence where he's just getting spooked out by all the like undead elements of Bowser's army, and having like these like very fitting, like he's carrying his bag of tools and a big awkward flashlight that goes out, and it's very akin to like him carrying his vacuum and the flashlight and stuff in the Luigi's Mansion 3, the one that I've played. And it's like, this is a bit of fun, but they just and there's those little elements where like Luigi tries to brag and have a little bit of confidence whenever he does succeed at something or thinks he has, and of course that's always undercut by him being revealed to have not succeeded at all, because he's actually kind of useless. And it's just a reminder of why he's a fun character compared to someone like Mario, who just has so little going on as a character, and they did not add anything in particular in this movie. Whoops. I think that about covers it. There's more scenes, but I don't need to summarize every single one of them. And in my roundabout, non-linear way, I think I've covered the thoughts, essentially. So I hope you enjoyed complaining about the Mario Brothers movie podcast. It is okay. I just like to watch movies that are better than okay, which is why I don't watch anything by Illumination, because they make the Minions movies. Why would I watch those?